This is my 4th year as a judge on the Miles Franklin, and I think what comes through is just the sheer diversity of the way people write and think about being an Australian. Having the privilege to actually read across so much Australian literature, you get a real sense of its depth and its strength and how it's thriving, how people still want to write and still want to tell Australian stories, and it's a marvellous thing.
Well, I came to Australia with my parents when I was 6. It was sort of the last of that wave of £10 poms. And you know, I didn't read any Australian books by Australian writers for quite a while. But I remember, I think I was about 15, and I found a copy of Elizabeth Jolley's Palomino, which I thought was going to be about pretty horses, you know, and I read it and it scared the daylights out of me. But it was this distinctly Australian book, and particularly it was about women in the landscape. And at that time we were living in sort of semi-rural Perth, on the outskirts of Perth, and a very sort of small, quite lonely, stranded in some ways English family. And I just sort of ate it up and tried to find everything that she'd written, and moved on to Thea Astley and Xavier Herbert and sort of all the Australian writers that I could find. And I think for me, it sort of started as a way of almost reading myself into the country and sort of reading myself into the landscape.
I've always been a voracious reader of Australian literature since I was very little, and as a teenager I was always reading probably books I shouldn't have from my parents' bookshelf. And there's just that amazing kind of rush of recognition when you read something set in you know, a place that you know. And I think it's really important for Australians to read Australian literature. And you know, they're our stories, and they tell us who we are.
I think that through literature, a country receives not just its history and its present, its social analysis, but it receives its dreams and becomes mythologized through literature. So I think that's a very important function of the literature of any country, and I think that's another reason why we need to take pride in the work that is done by our writers.
As trustees, we're delighted with this year's campaign to expand and engage the audience for the Miles Franklin Literary Award. We look forward to continuing to build on the success of the award itself and supporting Australian literature.